Rama Puppodu. Hope all are happy, living peacefully, having a healthy life, and feeling very relaxed. Now let's go to chapter 1, next part, that is Instrument in Divine Hands. Reverting to the mode of life Ramdas was leading in the cave, he would rise at about 3 o'clock early in the morning and run down directly to the water tanks for bath. Though the path to the tanks was rough and risky, he would not forego his morning dip, even in the darkest night. After bath, he would sit in asana for meditation till daybreak. For some days, his meditation consisted of only the mental repetition of Ram Mantram. Then, the mantram having stopped automatically, he beheld a small circular light before his mental vision. This yielded him thrills of delight. This experience having continued for some days, he felt a dazzling light like lightning flashing his eyes, which ultimately permeated and absorbed him. Now an inexpressible transport of bliss filled every pore of his physical frame. When this state was coming on, he would at the outset become oblivious of his hands and feet, and then gradually his entire body. Lost in this trance state, he would sit for 2 to 3 hours, still a supple awareness of external objects was maintained in this state. Some friends would pay him visits early in the morning when he was absorbed in the trance, and he had at the time a hazy recognition of their presence. He could hear the sounds of talk, if any, mere sounds, without sense or meaning for him. Whenever he fell into the trance, he would feel its grip so firmly that he could not easily shake it off. At the longest, it would not last more than 3 hours. After returning to body consciousness, he would be engaged in singing to himself some hymns glorifying God, and also in the loud recitation of the mantra. In fact, except when conversing, reading, or writing, he used to utter the mantra ceaselessly throughout the day. The trance experience brought about another change, which sleep thereafter became a state of half wakefulness or awareness during which he was filled with pure ecstasy. Sometimes at dead of night, a friend would pay him a surprise visit. Although Ramdas was in the trance state, he could know the friend's approach even when he was yet a furlong from the cave. In this half-wakeful state, it was that Ramdas had the blessed vision of Buddha's serene, peace-laden and majestic face, an account of which had appeared in the second book, At the Feet of God. It was during this time that Ramdas, as willed by the Lord, devoted 2 hours past midnight to the work of writing the book, In Quest of God. The last days in the cave also saw the trance condition encroaching upon the hours of the day, while no visitors were present. The utterance of the mantra would stop of itself, and he would transcend the body consciousness. Here, a unique experience is worthy of note. One morning, he was standing inside the cave, gazing on the golden orb of the rising sun, and he felt the trance stealing over him, and very soon he was entirely absorbed in it. Some time passed, and he came back to the body idea. A casual downward glance disclosed his view a serpent coiled round his right leg. Its forked tongue was briskly licking his big toe. Ramdas was not affected by the sight. In the same motionless posture, he watched the loving attention of the serpent. A minute or two thus passed, and the reptile slowly unwound itself and crept out of the cave. He recollects to have addressed it thus: "O beloved Ram, why art thou in such a hurry to go? The Lord's Leela is really wonderful. All forms are his, and he plays in various ways." The serpent friend conceived such a great love for Ramdas that it would come to see him every morning consecutively for 3 days, after which it stopped away for good. In accordance with a distinct command from the Lord within, he observed a vow of silence for 7 days. Despite the pressure of friends, he could not break it before the time, for he felt he was quite helpless in the matter. Surely God had complete mastery over his servant. Ramdas had noted a batch of lepers underneath the banyan trees in the Mangalore Maiden. One of the lepers, whose disease was in an advanced state, was conveyed every day in a hand cart by a small stout lad for alms from door to door. The face of this leper was so much disfigured by the fell disease that his features were quite indistinguishable. His whole face was one big sore throat and dripping with pus. His eyelids, nose, and lips had all been eaten up by the disease. As commissioned by the Lord, Ramdas undertook to feed these lepers at noon. The kind visitors to the cave condescended to offer food for them. On collecting the food from the 3 houses a day, he would go to the maiden, reaching it about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and feed them. The leper who had the worst attack came in for service first. His toes and fingers also having fallen a prey to leprosy, he could with great difficulty raise the food to his mouth. While he was engaged in eating, Ramdas would be busy in driving away the flies that were settling on his face, which at other times he covered with a piece of cloth. Ramdas had also to rub off gently the stream of pus coursing down his cheeks into his mouth. The remaining food would then be distributed to the boy and other lepers. The Lord put him in this service for about 2 months. All the time, far from feeling any weariness or repugnance, he performed the task in a spirit of enthusiasm, surcharged with an objectless ecstasy. A few days before he bid adieu to the cave, the feeding work was suddenly stopped by the command of the Lord. O Lord, thou feedest all thy creatures in thy own inscrutable ways. Ramdas is but an instrument in thy omnipotent hands. Soon after that, the feeding of the lepers had ended. A Malabari, that is a native of Malabar, came to stay with Ramdas in the cave for a few days. He was so emaciated that he was only skin and bones. Ramdas thanked God for his having given him another opportunity to serve him in the form of this skeleton-bodied Malabari. Ramdas scarcely found this friend in a talkative mood. The only expression that was now and again issuing from his lips in a weak voice was Krishna, Sharan, Sharan. Ramdas would both at noon and in the evening run down to the city and by begging collect food to feed this welcome guest. O Lord, thy manifestations are most marvelous. The lepers and the Malabari that he served are thyself in those forms. The entire universe is thy self's revelation, in which thou art manifest in a variety of masks. Thou art the one absolute truth, birthless and deathless, pure, Satchit Ananda, eternal existence, knowledge and bliss. Amongst the daily visitors mentioned has also to be made of a goat and a cow. Both would appear at the cave regularly for their share of plantains. The goat played with Ramdas with great familiarity. He would dance on his seat and sometimes climb on his shoulders. The cow, on the other hand, would quietly come to the entrance and with outstretched neck receive a plantain and then walk away. That's all, folks. Let's see in the next chapter. Thank you. Bye bye. Rama Rama Puppoda.